Hello Internet, and welcome to my live reaction for To Your Eternity, chapter 143. When we last left our heroes, Izumi kind of continued her story about where she went wrong raising Mizuha. We saw that, according to Izumi's husband especially, Izumi very much prioritized... She was the kind of living vicariously through her daughter kind of mom. And even Izumi herself kind of realizes that's really where she went wrong. And in the end, does not believe that she deserves to be saved. And so she kind of walks off. Maybe to die, maybe not. Bond tells Fushi that Izumi is okay with, or is considering, being brought back to life, but we know she isn't. And there's also some pictures on the family computer she wants Fushi to delete. And so Fushi had to learn what a computer was, for one thing. But yeah, with that, let's jump right on into chapter 143. And we open at school. Here's something I kind of have not quite don't quite remember. Has Fushi been wearing his traditional Nameless Boy outfit at school? Because I thought he'd been wearing his, like a school uniform, but that's the traditional furs. Either way, he's rummaging through the locker, and he's rummaging in someone's back, and he pulls out, like, a card. Here it is. With this, I can get into Mizuha's house. And after I throw away the pictures inside Izumi-san's computer, this errand will be complete. Then after that... So yeah, Fushi's working on breaking into Mizuha's place at Izumi's request. I'll find the boss knocker, and he flashes back to Yuki. From the heart, we'll forge a peace agreement. Then continues, then Mizuha. He thinks back to Yuki again. If we can make Senpai want to live again... So it's kind of curious to me that in both of these quick little memories of Fushi, it's Yuki he thinks about. Is Yuki kind of becoming someone super important to Fushi? Because so far, I had the impression that Yuki was just kind of a hanger-on. But now it's specifically what Yuki says that's sort of characterizing his thoughts, which I find interesting. Something to keep a pin on going forward. Anyway, Izumi-san said we didn't have to save Mizuha, but that can't be right. Then we cut to what looks like a home ec classroom. Chapter 143, Binding Earth, Part 1. And we see this bird, I'm guessing is Fushi, watching Mizuha, watching all the kids in the class, but I think looking for Mizuha. Taking over her life? Making new allies? To what end? And then the bell rings. Alright, stop what you're doing for now, and put away your knives. And everyone kind of takes their aprons off. And one girl says, oh, should I go ahead and set these cups out? Sure. And someone steps on her foot. I'm not quite sure where this whole scene is going, though. Especially because I don't really see Mizuha. Unless this girl is supposed to be Mizuha, but she really does not look like Mizuha in the slightest. But we see this crash. What was that? As a result of the stepping on her foot. And I think that's the same girl from before, who whatever she was holding is broken now. Are you alright? And we can see the pain she's feeling, as, oh god, a shard of glass is, stabbing through the webbing between her fingers, and she pulls it out. And that is Mizuha. Okay, I didn't think it was. I didn't think her face quite looked like Mizuha's, but it is. Going back to kind of the bullying that Mizuha had experienced at the beginning of the Present World arc, that we haven't really touched on in a while, actually. What with all the drama on knockers. Anyway, a girl who I don't recognize responds, Mizuha-san, this way, and she kind of takes Mizuha out. And she tells the other girls, I think this is the part of the bullying group. I think she is. That was too far. And this is where she's drawn the line. And for some reason, part of her reminds me of Funa, but I don't quite think that's Funa. I also don't have a good image of Funa in my brain to really tell me if that's Funa or not. But anyway, the girl kind of panics. I didn't. And then we cut to Mizuha and the girl washing her hand off in the sink. Wash off the blood in the sink. And as it kind of rinses, the blood washes away, and it might just be a trick of the drawing, but it looks like her skin heals too. Like the knocker has given her some kind of healing ability. But the girl asks her, "Aren't you lucky I was the health officer?" And Mizuha smiles, "We'll put on some bandages anyway." And Fushi thinks exactly what I just thought. So when the knocker is in charge, she heals herself? Oh yeah, that is Funa. I was right, because the girls say, Mizuha and Funa have been acting awfully friendly lately. So? Good for them. I don't care. Oh, so this line right there is Funa observing the healing, and then saying if anyone else saw that, you'd be in trouble, Guardian Knocker. So you're lucky it was me. Anyway, this is the group of bullying girls, as Fushi's kind of listening in. No, isn't it a little weird? Just let the losers stick together. So again, that bullying plotline is really coming back this chapter. And Funa, pops up right in front of Fushi. If you show up looking like a bird, you're counted as absent. And Fushi panics. She knows. Why didn't you just come to class normally? Everyone's worried. If you don't come to school, we'll make you into curry. There's something about that the first panel on this page. This one too. But that first panel of like Funa peeking her head under the newspaper. There's just like, she's creepy. She's kind of creepy there, which is absolutely the point. That's a threat. It's a very, very thickly veiled threat, but it's a threat. And Fushi kind of panics. Curry? Go ahead and try if you think you can. And then we hear a voice. And it's Yuki approaching Mizuha and Funa. Do you two think that humans and mutants can get along? Okay. I want to draw attention to Yuki's use of the word mutant there. And what exactly Yuki knows. Like, Yuki knows that Mizuha knows about Mizuha and the Guardian Knocker. That's what Fushi explained to him in Bon. And I think he knows about Funa, right? I'm about 90% sure Fushi told him about Funa. And so the question is, especially because knockers even are like generally well known, like the Siege of Renril is a famous historical event in universe. Why does he not specifically say knocker instead of mutant, which is just sort of vague and not really based in reality? But that's a minor thing. And Fushi kind of panics, Yuki? And Funa looks at him, mutants? But the Guardian Knocker just, before he can explain, just says, yes. Right? I think so too. And then Yuki extends his hands towards the Guardian Knocker. Then please shake my hand. And both Guardian Knocker and Funa just sort of like stare at him. As Fushi like inwardly panics. What are you saying, Yuki? Friends. And the Guardian Knocker in Mizuha's body, of course, shakes Yuki's hand. I mean, and Yuki acts all ecstatic. Hooray! I always wanted non-human friends. I mean, maybe it's because the last video I reviewed for this channel, chapter I reviewed for this channel was Eden 0, 143. That reads super fake to me. Like, there's no way that's gonna stick. Not at all. And Yuki's kind of dumb for believing it. But he also is dumb. That's a very important part of his character. Anyway. Yuki runs off. Let's talk again later. And Fushi's just like, what the fuck just happened? Was that the peace agreement Yuki was talking about? That's all it takes? And then the bell rings again, and Funa says, oh, break's over. And then Mizuha comes back to consciousness. And she notices the new bandage from her cut. When did I get this bandage? Let's go. And Funa throws one more taunt in Fushi's direction. Bye bye. And then and Fushi just watches her go, and we cut to sometime later, at Mizuha's apartment building, I guess. And Fushi now has the key card, and he's trying to examine it and some kind of console. Let's see, this goes, and he notices a kid using his own key card to get into his own apartment, and he repeats the process with Mizuha's. He opens the door, and he walks over to the computer. Is this that computer Bond was talking about? And he looks at it, and it's important to note that Fushi, because he's been asleep for half a millennium, has never seen a computer before. I've got to throw away the pictures in this. And he tries to take it apart, also turning into, that's either Gugu's brother or one of the Jananda guys. I think it's one of the Jananda guys, but I can't quite tell. One of the more minor transformations, and says, as he tries to pry it open, "How do you open this thing?" And then we cut to him just taking the entire computer. Oh, if I need to get rid of the pictures, and he just yeets it into the ocean. Phew, that should do it. And then Yuki's sister, Aiko, as Fushi calls her in a second, notices him and yell as she's cleaning the beach. "Illegal dumping, environmental destruction, wanton barbarism." And Fushi notices her. "Oh, Aiko, what are you doing here?" "My monthly cleanup volunteer work. You can't throw computers into the river, Fushi-san. You have to contact the appropriate agency to pick them up for you. The number's on the city's website at..." And Fushi just runs off. "Okay, you take care of that then. Hey, you do it yourself." I'm glad this chapter is giving us good Fushi doesn't understand modern culture content, because I feel like you've gotten very, very little of that. And it works very well. It's very funny. It's not quite Fushi turns into an animal and gets really into it gag, which is top tier to your eternity jokes. But it's up there. Anyway, Aiko yells at him, "Hey, you do it yourself." And as Fushi's running up the hill, he sees Yuki. "Fushi? Yuki." And Fushi runs up to him. "What was that about today? If all it took to make the world peaceful was a handshake, we wouldn't be having all this trouble in the first place." Excuse me. Okay. So yeah, it's basically Fushi's calling Yuki out for not for being more than a little naive. But Yuki tells him, "The fact that she shook my hand means we can communicate with her. That's super lucky. I'm glad I didn't get turned to mist." I mean, yeah, I guess maybe it is a start, but the Guardian Knocker is using you. My theory is that because at that point the Guardian Knocker knows that Fushi is there, she's trying to imply to Fushi, I think, that peace is possible, which will again kind of muddy Fushi's resolve in stopping the kill suicidal people plan. Because I cannot stress enough how fucking horrendous a plan that is. But anyway, Fushi kind of pauses there and then asks, so do you need something? And Yuki holds up this orb he's carrying. "I brought a message in this pot." And Fushi asks, "A message? From Itty?" "No, from me." And Fushi's just really confused now. "Huh? Did you know, Fushi, that you don't have to be a member of the earthenware people to make a pot?" And that's where we end, with, Yuki's very obvious, yeah. The power of the earthenware people is not to make a pot, it's to communicate via pot. And I mean, sure, Yuki is more than a little naive. He might just not quite realize that exactly. But it makes for a funny gag, even if it's kind of an off-putting ending. It just sort of stops. Which, admittedly, this is at least a two-part chapter. 143.5 is set for next week. But still, it's, while a lot of the kind of part one chapters feel like complete chapters in their own right, this one very much feels like it just sort of stops. But anyway, let's talk about the chapter itself. As we spend most of the time Um, Looking at the Guardian Knocker and Funa, um, which like it's the first thing it does is sort of serve as a reminder of the Mizuha Bullying plotline, which, like I mentioned during the read through, is something that's kind of been left by the wayside in the wake of everything that's happened. Like, I don't think we've really seen it since, maybe not since Izumi died, but certainly not since the Memori arc. Like, it's been a while. And so the fact that Oima's brought that up now, I think that might be a sign it's going to come back into play. But then we see the kind of alliance role the Guardian Knocker and Funa are kind of in at school. You know, the two Knockers are obviously going to be very, very close there. And then we have, you know, Funa outing Fushi as being there. Which, like I kind of implied, I think everything that happens with Yuki is a show for Fushi. I don't think the Guardian Knocker even really sees Yuki at all. He's just kind of there. Another tool in its game against Fushi. And so when it shakes Yuki's hand, the implication there is that I think it's the Guardian Knocker trying to signal to Fushi, hey, peace is possible, you should side with us. When, you know, he really shouldn't. But anyway, I really want to see more of Funa. The way, like, Funa's just, the Funa Knocker, more like, is just so good at just turning on the creep at Fushi. It's really good. Both the if you show up looking like a bird panel on page 6 and that bye-bye on page 9 have a very, like, subtle threat. Have, like, a very, very, like, you know, hidden threat to it. It's neat, is what I'm saying. I'm a fan of her. And then we get the computer joke. I love that. He has no fucking clue what a computer is. And so he just yeets it into the ocean until Aiko catches him and gets all mad at him. And we don't get much of a resolution past that. Is the kind of thing that makes me wonder why we even really talked about the computers in the first place. Like, if it was just a page or two in 2 separate chapters, and then it's kind of over and done with, there must be something on there that mattered. And we may not be able to find that because Fushi just destroyed the computer. Or no, actually, hold on. I think he just destroys the monitor. So he might not have actually done anything. Right? I'm not exactly a computer whiz, but I do recall that exact gag in Into the Spider-Verse. So that might have been what happened, that he didn't actually steal the computer itself, but just the monitor. In which case, we can still find out what was on that computer, and how those pictures can sort of impact the story from here. But we end back on Yuki, as Yuki kind of justifies himself for his actions with the Knockers, and then shows a pot that he made that is some kind of message from Yuki. And I don't know what's gonna go on there. And we'll kind of have to wait till next week to find out. So yeah, this was a fun chapter. It's kind of just a bit of grandstanding almost. Like, especially pages 6 through 8, as you know, the Guardian Knocker puts on this show for Fushi of peace. But, you know, also shows us some of that Funa's role in the school for the Guardian Knocker, kind of like covering for her. The really good computer gag. It's hard to call something useless when it's just so fucking funny. And something's up with Yuki. I'm curious to know what that is. So yeah, all in all, a pretty fun chapter, and I can't wait to see where we go from here. So I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the chapter and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe, you know, do whatever makes you happy, you know? And remember, your life is your own, okay? Bye!